All right, we're going to talk about mean absolute deviation today. So the mean absolute deviation tells how far away data values are from the mean. The mean absolute deviation is a measure of variation, like range. Mean absolute deviation can be abbreviated as MAD, M-A-D. So if you ever see it written as the MAD, that's what we mean. A small mean absolute deviation means that most values are close to the mean. And then in contrast, a large mean absolute deviation means that the data values are more spread out. So here are some steps to find the mean absolute deviation. So the first thing we need to do is find the mean of the data. Then we find the difference between each data value and the mean. The third step is to find the sum of the distances from step 2. And step 4 is to divide the sum in step 3 by the total number of data values. So we have an example down here at the bottom. Find the mean absolute deviation of the data set below. So the first thing I like to do if I don't have a table is make one. So I'm going to do 4 separate columns. My first column is going to be my data. My second will be my mean. The third one will be my difference. And then my final column is my absolute value. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find my mean for the set of data I have here. So remember, in order to find the mean, I add all of the data points together. So 10 plus 12 plus 10 plus 8 plus 10. And that equals 50. And then I'm going to divide by the number of data points I have. So that's 5. So 50 divided by 5 is 10. I'm going to put my data in order from least to greatest. So I've got 8. You don't necessarily have to put it in order from least to greatest, but it's easier to manage. So there's my data. My mean we just found is 10. So for every number I have in the data column, I'm going to write the mean of 10 next to it. Now my next step is to find the difference between these two columns. So 8 minus 10, of course, is going to take me into the negatives, and that's completely fine. So you can use a calculator for this, and you'll see as you put into your calculator here, 8 minus 10 shows up as a negative 2, and that's actually correct. We're going to write that in for the difference. 10 minus 10 is 0. 10 minus 10 is 0. 10 minus 10 is 0, and 12 minus 10 is 2. So my difference column is done. So now I need the absolute value of these numbers. You could also, when you look at these, if you didn't want to do these columns, you could say, okay, well, I could just do 10 minus 8 rather, and just take the difference between the two, starting with the larger number. That would be fine as well, but I just want to show you where that comes from. So remember, the absolute value is a number's distance from 0. So negative 2 is 2 places from 0. We're essentially making them positive. 0 stays 0. And then positive 2 is 2 places away from 0. So my next step then is to add my absolute value column. So I'm going to add this together. So 2 plus 2 is 4. And then my next step is to divide by my total number of data values. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data values in my set. So I'm going to divide by 5. These are my data values. And so again, when you use your calculator, 4 divided by 5 is 8/10. So 0, 0.8. So my MAD for this question is 8/10, which when I look at my data over here on the left-hand side makes sense. My MAD is small, right? It's less than 1 because there's not a huge gap in my data here. From my median, I'm 2 data points to the minimum and 2 data points to the maximum. So not that much variation in my data. If I had a data point in here of like 63, that would be a different variation in my data. But since my MAD is very, very small, it means that most values here are close to the mean. And so that's how you find the mean absolute deviation.